The security call came while I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, trying to decide whether coffee counted as breakfast if I put enough milk in it. "Ms. Ellison?" The guard cleared his throat. "We have Diane Mercer at the entrance. She's using a remote registered to Evan Mercer, but his access was deactivated last month." On the small monitor beside my pantry, my ex-mother-in-law sat behind the lowered barrier in her pearl-white SUV. The cargo area was packed with white roses, folded linens, and boxes of champagne glasses. "She says your ex-husband gave her the remote," the guard continued. "We need your approval before we lift the barrier." Diane looked straight into the gate camera. She wasn't embarrassed. She was waiting. I stared at the flowers and wondered what, exactly, she believed was about to happen in my house. "Has she said why she's here?" "She says she's collecting business inventory. With roses." A pause. She did not specifically address the roses. That sounded like Tom Alvarez. I had never met him outside the security booth, but after 6 years at Hawthorne Glen, I knew his pauses. My phone began vibrating against the counter. Evan, of course. "Don't let her in yet," I told Tom. "I won't lift the gate without your approval." That sentence settled somewhere deep in me. It should have been obvious. It was my house, my gate account, my name on the property file. Still, hearing it from a stranger felt almost indecent. Evan's call stopped, then started again. I answered. "Why does your mother have my remote?" "Good morning to you too." "Why does your mother have my remote?" "She needs 2 linen bins from the garage. I forgot to grab them Wednesday." "So you gave her a remote to my house?" "To the neighborhood gate, not the house." The distinction was delivered with the patient precision he used when he wanted me to feel unreasonable. "It was in the blue dish," I said. "What?" "You took it from the blue dish." "I took my remote. Your access was deactivated when you changed your address." I didn't realize that. Below the monitor, the real blue dish sat beside my back door, empty except for my new remote and a brass key to the garden shed. The rim was chipped in one place from the afternoon Evan had tossed his truck keys into it and missed. I had kept meaning to replace it. Then the chip became part of the dish, the way small damage often did if you looked at it long enough. On screen, Diane checked her watch. "She has an event this afternoon," Evan said. "Those linens are custom ivory. The client chose them specifically." "Then you should have collected them Wednesday." "Yes, I should have. I didn't. Can we skip the part where I sign a confession in blood? You gave someone access to my property without asking. I gave my mother a gate clicker so she could pick up her own things from a garage where you agreed to store them for 60 days by appointment. She thought 8:30 was reasonable. It's 8:17. Mara. There it was. My name softened at the edges, the verbal equivalent of his hand between my shoulder blades. He had used that tone at crowded dinners, in bank offices, in the courthouse hallway after our divorce hearing. It meant, "Please become easier before other people notice you are not." I turned from the monitor and looked through the sunroom. Morning light covered the long oak table in pale rectangles. Beyond the glass, the boxwoods needed trimming. There were no party tables on the lawn, no guests walking up the flagstone path, no reason for 40 champagne glasses to be sitting in Diane's car. Why does she have flowers? What flowers? White roses. Enough for a wedding. Probably for the Carson tasting. She said she's here for linens. She has more than one stop today. Then this is a stop she should have scheduled. He breathed into the phone. Not a sigh. Evan knew better than to sigh when he was trying to look calm. "I'm asking you for 30 minutes. "No, you're asking me to approve something you already told her she could do." Another pause. The marriage had contained thousands of them, little rooms where I was expected to walk in and furnish his answer. "I'm asking you not to leave my mother sitting at a gate like a trespasser. She is trying to enter uninvited. She's picking up inventory, Mara. She isn't storming the embassy." In spite of myself, I almost laughed. Evan always found his sense of humor when accountability entered the room. I looked at the clock on the microwave. My Saturday had been supposed to contain coffee, a shower, and several hours of not being useful to a Mercer. 30 minutes, I said. The guard stays with her, garage only. Thank you. I'm not done. She doesn't enter the house. She doesn't take anything that isn't on the inventory list. And you bring the remote back today. Fine. Say it. What? Say you'll bring it back. He went quiet just long enough to make the promise feel expensive. I'll bring it back. I called Tom and approved a single supervised entry. On the monitor, the barrier rose. Diane drove through without waving. By the time I pulled on jeans and reached the garage, her SUV was backing into my driveway. Tom followed in the security cart, fluorescent vest over his uniform. He gave me a small, apologetic nod, as though he had brought bad weather. Diane climbed out wearing cream slacks and a navy blouse, with loose sleeves that somehow never fell into food. At 68, she moved with the swift, upright energy of someone who regarded fatigue as a character defect. "I'm sorry they dragged you into this, Tom," she said. Tom glanced at me. "Just following the resident's instructions, ma'am." Diane smiled at him. "Of course." She turned the same smile on me, but hers had changed temperature. "You could have called," I said. "I did call Evan." "You weren't entering Evan's property." "I'm not entering anything. I'm collecting my linens from the garage." She lifted the hatch of her SUV. The roses were arranged in 6 low silver bowls, each one packed tight and expensive. Beside them sat narrow black boxes printed with the logo of a rental company I recognized from the invoices I had spent years reconciling. I pointed. "Those aren't for a tasting." Diane took out an empty rolling cart. "What an unusual welcome." "It's not a welcome. That's the point." Tom examined the pavement with professional intensity. Diane set the cart down harder than necessary. "Your divorce is between you and Evan. There's no reason to make ordinary business impossible. My divorce is the reason your son no longer has gate access. He lived here for 11 years. 12. Her mouth tightened, and I hated that I had corrected her. I hated even more that the correction mattered. "Then you understand why he might not think of this place as hostile territory." "I understand. He doesn't live here." For 1 second, something honest crossed her face. Not hurt. Calculation. Diane was excellent at appearing spontaneous, but she measured rooms, people, favors, especially favors. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Evan told me the two of you were trying to keep this transition civil. We are. This doesn't feel civil. Civil doesn't mean you still get a remote." Behind us, Tom coughed into his fist. Diane looked toward the garage. "May I?" I entered the code myself and raised the door. The left side still resembled a storage unit curated by a person with very expensive taste. Linen bins stood beneath shelves of votive holders. Wooden crates contained chargers, silver bud vases, and brass candlesticks wrapped in old dish towels. There were 4 folding screens, 3 bar carts, and a set of upholstered dining chairs Diane had bought at an estate sale and forgotten to sell. Blue painter's tape marked the boundary between Mercer Pine inventory and my tools. I had made the line 2 days after Evan moved out. Diane saw it and laughed softly. "Are we dividing Berlin now?" "We're avoiding confusion. I'm not confused about what belongs to me. That makes one of us." She rolled the cart to a stack of bins. "Ivory damask, ivory linen, ivory cotton. Which did Evan tell you?" He said 2 linen bins. "For the Carson tasting?" That's what he said. The Carson tasting was Thursday. The garage seemed to get very quiet. Diane slid 2 bins onto the cart without looking at me. "What event is today?" I asked. She fussed with a lid that did not need fussing. "A retirement dinner." "Where?" "The venue is being finalized. It's Saturday morning. Our clients hire us because we handle changes without burdening them." I knew that sentence. I had written it for the Mercer Pine website. Diane wheeled the cart toward her SUV. Halfway there, one wheel caught on the garage threshold and the top bin tilted. Tom reached for it, but I caught it first. The lid sprang loose. Inside were not linens but 6 silver picture frames, a box of battery candles, 2 bundles of printed place cards, and a clear acrylic sign. Diane snatched the sign before I could read it. "That doesn't look like ivory damask," I said. "The linen is underneath. Take it out." "What?" "Take out anything that isn't linen. Mara, don't be ridiculous. You told security you were here for 2 bins of linens. I approved 2 bins of linens. This is event inventory. Then schedule a pickup for event inventory." Her expression changed. Diane's anger rarely made her louder. It made her voice cleaner. "Do you have any idea what it takes to run a business when one member of the family suddenly decides she wants every favor documented and notarized? Do you have any idea what it's like to discover your favors have been entered as permanent assets?" Tom placed both hands on the rail of his cart. "Ma'am, the authorized time was for linen collection." Diane looked at him as if a chair had offered an opinion. She removed the frames and candles, stacking them on the garage floor, one precise item at a time. The acrylic sign went down face down. When she bent to return it, one corner caught on the concrete and turned. In black script beneath a wreath of white leaves, it read, "Congratulations, Malcolm." Below that was the Mercer Pine logo, and below the logo, smaller but perfectly visible, the Ellison glass house. I picked it up. Diane reached for it. "Give me that." "This is my house." "It's a working name." "For what?" "A concept." "A retirement dinner?" Her phone rang. She looked at the screen and declined the call. "How many people?" "Mara." "How many people are coming to my house?" "No one is coming to your house today." "Then why does this say they are?" "It doesn't have an address. It has my name. Ellison is hardly unique. The glass house is what you call my sunroom. It is what clients call it. Clients who have been here. We've held tastings here for years. When I lived here with your son. When I agreed. You always agreed." The words landed between us before she understood what she had said. Diane glanced toward Tom, then back at me. "That's not what I meant." It was exactly what she meant. Worse, it was exactly how Evan had lived. I set the sign on top of the frames. "Your 30 minutes are over. We've been here 11. They're over." She stared at me, searching for the familiar weak joint. There had always been one. The client, the staff, the delivery deadline, the embarrassment Evan would suffer if I refused. Diane never asked whether I wanted to help. She identified the person who would pay if I did not. This time, she had not told me who that person was. She loaded the 2 actual linen bins into her SUV. Before closing the hatch, she looked past me toward the sunroom. It was only a glance. Then she smiled. "I'll have Evan bring the remote." "You can leave it with Tom." "Evan gave it to me. I'll return it to Evan." "You're holding access registered to my address." "Mara, it's a plastic button. Let's keep some perspective." She got in the SUV and drove away with the remote still clipped to her keyring. Tom waited until the vehicle disappeared around the curve. "Would you like me to place a permanent block on that device?" he asked. "I thought it was already deactivated." "It is for automatic entry. The system still logs every attempt." "Every attempt?" He nodded. "Date, time, gate, assigned resident, even if the barrier doesn't lift." A cold little pressure formed beneath my ribs. "Can you send me the log?" "I can send the records attached to your property." "How far back?" 90 days from the resident portal. Further, if management pulls an archive." I looked at the empty driveway. Diane had known the remote might fail. She'd also known security would call me, and she had arrived with enough confidence to put flowers in the car first. "Send me the 90 days," I said. Inside, my coffee had gone cold. I reheated it, opened my laptop, and signed into the Mercer Pine shared drive for what was supposed to be one of the final times. The divorce agreement had not magically untangled 12 years of spreadsheets, vendor accounts, and passwords. I had promised to close out the events booked under my name, and there were 9 left. In the proposals folder, I searched for Malcolm. The file appeared immediately. Malcolm Baird Retirement. Final. I opened it. 42 guests. White roses. Champagne service. Seated dinner beneath glass walls at sunset. Venue, the Ellison Glass House. My address appeared on page 2. The event date was the following Saturday. At the bottom of page 6, under a deposit of $18,000, was a line that made my hands go numb. Venue authorization confirmed by E. Mercer. My phone rang. Evan. I answered without speaking. He exhaled. Okay, before you get angry, I need you to understand what happened with Diane's other venue. You promised my house to 42 people. Technically, the proposal says 40. It says 42. A beat. So you found the proposal. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought we could talk before you saw the draft. It says final. It's a file name. The client paid $18,000. That covers the entire event, not just the venue. At my house. We only need the sunroom and the garden. I looked toward the blue dish beside the door. My gate remote sat in its center, where his used to be. Evan lowered his voice. Mara, I need one last favor. No. You haven't heard the favor. You need my house next Saturday. That's the favor. I need you to consider letting us honor a commitment made in good faith. Whose good faith? I didn't know Whitmore was going to cancel. What's Whitmore? The conservatory we originally booked. I opened the proposal again. Whitmore Conservatory did not appear anywhere in the document. Why did they cancel? Insurance issue. What kind of insurance issue? Diane didn't think the additional coverage was necessary, so they didn't cancel. Your mother refused their requirements. They changed the requirements after she paid the hold fee. And then you offered my house. As a contingency. To the client or to your mother? Both. I leaned against the kitchen counter. The reheated coffee tasted faintly burned, but I kept drinking it because putting it down felt like giving him the floor. When did you offer it? It wasn't one conversation. That means you don't want to tell me. Mara, I was trying to keep the event alive while I found another venue. When? 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, Evan and I had met at a quiet Italian restaurant to divide the last household bills. He had ordered the ravioli I used to like and pushed the bread basket toward me without asking. He told me he was proud of how respectfully we were handling everything. 3 weeks, I said. The divorce had been final for 6 days. I didn't think the Whitmore situation would get this far. You had a proposal with my address. A draft proposal. It says final. You're getting stuck on the file name. I'm getting stuck on the part where you sold access to my home. We didn't sell access. We sold an event. The venue is one component. Then replace the component. We're trying. Try somewhere else. The suitable places are booked. Malcolm's firm has people flying in. The invitations went out. You let invitations go out with my address? They say Hawthorne Glen. That's where I live. It's also a large neighborhood. With one glass sunroom, Diane has been advertising for years. Evan fell silent. I shut my eyes. Did Malcolm come here? Once? When? Last spring. He attended the Falk dinner. That was a private dinner for one of Diane's clients. I approved that. He loved the room. That did not turn my house into a venue. I know. You keep saying you know things after doing the exact thing a person who knew them wouldn't do. I made a bad call. No, a bad call is ordering too much wine. You created a contract around something I own and hoped urgency would become permission. His voice hardened. I'm trying to prevent a disaster for people who didn't cause our problems. Our problems did not cancel Whitmore. Diane made a mistake. And you gave her my house to hide it. I gave her an option. You gave her a remote. She needed linens. She showed up with the event flowers and a sign bearing my name. What sign? I almost admired how genuinely confused he sounded. Diane had not told him everything. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it showed me the design of their partnership. Evan built the bridge, and Diane drove whatever she wanted across it. Ask your mother. Mara. Did you move money from my savings because she made a mistake? That is not the same thing. You said payroll was an emergency. This time, invitations are the emergency. Next week, it'll be rented chairs sitting in the road. There's always a point where saying no makes me responsible for the damage you already did. This is one dinner. It was one payroll transfer. I paid most of that back. Most. I'm still paying it. Because the divorce agreement requires you to. He inhaled slowly. I'm not asking you to forgive anything. I'm asking you not to punish Malcolm, Luis, and 20 other people because you're angry at me. There it was. He had found the invoice for my conscience. Luis Ortega had catered Mercer Pine events since before I met Evan. He paid his staff on Monday mornings, tipped delivery crews out of his own pocket, and believed contracts were solemn even when the people signing them were idiots. Don't use Luis, I said. I'm telling you who gets hurt. You should have thought of him before you promised my home. I did think of him. That's why I'm trying to save the event. No, you thought of me. You thought I would absorb it. You're the only person with the space. I'm the only person you were willing to corner. Evan did sigh then. What do you want? The question startled me. I want the event moved. I mean, what do you want from me? An apology, money, a rental fee, name it. Permission is not a price negotiation. Everything has to become a referendum on the marriage with you. That's rich coming from a man who just turned our former home into his backup venue. Our home. My house. He stopped speaking. The deed had always been in my name. I had purchased the place 5 years before meeting him and refinanced once during the marriage without adding him. Evan had never objected. He had preferred to call it paperwork because paperwork could be ignored right up until it could not. I lived there 12 years, he said, and now you don't. That doesn't erase what it was. No, but apparently divorce paperwork is more real to some of us than others. I ended the call before he could soften my name again. For several seconds, my kitchen was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator cycle off. Then my laptop chimed. Tom had sent the access report. The spreadsheet contained 90 days of gate activity attached to my address. My new remote appeared under my name. The second device appeared under Evan's, with its serial number and every attempt to use it. It had been deactivated 31 days earlier, after I removed him from the resident account. Before that, it had opened the gate 11 times after he moved out. I knew about 3 of those visits. One was the afternoon he collected his clothes. One was for the dining chairs he had taken to his apartment. One was the night we sat in separate rooms while an appraiser listed the furniture neither of us especially wanted until the other person did. 8 remained. 2 were weekday mornings when I had been at work. One was a Friday night I had spent at a conference downtown. The earliest was 6 days after Evan moved out at 6:42 on a Sunday morning. I pulled up my calendar. That weekend I had driven to Asheville with friends. When I returned, the sunroom table had been turned 90 degrees. Evan said Diane's movers must have shifted it during the final event we hosted before the separation. I had believed him because the explanation was boring. I downloaded the log, saved it outside the shared business drive, and opened the Hawthorne Glen resident portal. The gate remote assigned to Evan was already blocked, but I reported the device as retained without authorization and requested permanent cancellation. Then I removed Diane from my standing guest list. Her name disappeared with one click. I stared at the empty line longer than I should have. For years, Diane's access had been automatic. She arrived with garment bags, florist buckets, garment steamers, ice crises, and opinions. She once reorganized my pantry during a tasting because the cumin was living beside the baking supplies, like it had lost its way. I laughed when I discovered it. Evan laughed harder. The cumin stayed where she put it. I opened the pantry. It was still there. I moved it back. Then I drafted an email to both of them. The Baird event did not have permission to use my property. No client, vendor, employee, or rental company was authorized to enter Hawthorne Glen under my name. All Mercer Pine inventory had to be removed within the remaining 37 days of the storage period. Pickup would be available Tuesday from 4 to 6, Thursday from 9 to noon, and the following Monday from 3 to 5. Every pickup required written confirmation and an inventory list. I read it twice and deleted 3 sentences that sounded like arguments. They did not need to understand me. They needed dates. Before I could send it, Luis called. He did not say hello. Tell me, I did not just order $600 of sea bass for a dinner that has no room. I didn't know about the dinner until this morning. Evan says you withdrew the venue. I never offered the venue. That is a sentence for lawyers. I have a refrigerator full of fish. Next Saturday? The retirement dinner is next Saturday. The tasting is Tuesday. That explained the roses in Diane's car, not today's event. She had brought them to photograph sample arrangements in my sunroom. Luis, did Evan tell you I approved my house? He told me the family venue was confirmed. Did he say my name? He said Ellison. That's my last name. It is also on 3 years of event invoices you prepared. The rebuke was fair enough to sting. I didn't prepare this one. No, I can tell. The tax line is wrong. Despite everything, a laugh escaped me. Luis remained quiet for half a second. This is not funny. I know. I have staff holding the date. Rentals are booked. Malcolm Baird has been my customer through 4 corporate dinners, and he did not create whatever war is happening in your kitchen. That's almost exactly what Evan said. Then Evan has managed one intelligent thought today. He offered my home without asking. Luis's tone changed, not all the way to sympathy, but closer to attention. You never approved it? No. Diane said you were being difficult about insurance. I wasn't involved in the insurance. Fantastic. Something metallic crashed in the background. Luis shouted, "Not that shelf!" away from the phone, then returned. They told me Whitmore became unavailable and you offered the glass room. They lied. They simplified. You make that sound generous. I work in events. If I reject every liar, I will be home by lunch. I rub my forehead. Can you move the catering to another venue? If one exists with a licensed prep kitchen, load-in access, 42 chairs, and a dining room, Malcolm does not hate. He is retiring from an architecture firm. He notices walls. I'll call him. No. Why? Because you are angry, and angry people enjoy honesty too much. I'm not trying to ruin the event. I know. That is why you should call me back when you know what you are trying to do. He hung up. I sent the email. Diane responded 9 minutes later. Mara, your tone is unnecessary. We intend to remove our property within the period you offered. The Baird dinner is a separate matter Evan believed had been discussed with you. Any misunderstanding should be resolved privately, without alarming clients or vendors. Evan replied only to me. You didn't have to copy her. I typed, she owns the business. His answer came immediately. We own it together. That was new. For years, Diane described Mercer Pine as hers, whenever praise was involved, and ours whenever money was short. I closed the email and began photographing the garage. Each shelf, each bin, each crate. On the 3rd shelf above the brass candlesticks, I found a folder wedged behind a box of taper candles. Inside were printed layouts of my sunroom. One showed the oak table removed and 6 round tables arranged under the glass. Another mapped a bar along the west wall, directly in front of the cabinet where I kept my mother's china. Measurements ran along every edge in Diane's narrow handwriting. The top page was dated the Friday night I had been at the downtown conference. At the bottom, beside a rough sketch of the garden path, she had written, "Gate access through E. No need to involve M until venue confirmed." I photographed the note, then slid the layouts back into the folder. My first impulse was to call Evan and read the sentence aloud. I wanted to hear which word he would defend first. Gate access. Confirmed. Involve. Instead, I sent him the photograph. He called within a minute. I never saw that note. But you gave her access. To pick up supplies. 8 times? What? I have the gate log. Silence. 11 entries after you moved out. I said, 3 I knew about. How many of the other 8 were your mother? I don't remember. That's convenient. It isn't convenient. It was months ago. 6 weeks. We were still sorting the business inventory. She was measuring my sunroom while I was away. I didn't know she was doing that. She wrote gate access through E, because I had access. She wrote, no need to involve M. I can read, Mara. Then read it again. I said I didn't see the note. But did you know she wanted to use the house for future events? He hesitated. That was the answer. Still, I waited. She talked about doing occasional tastings, he said. Nothing was decided. Nothing could be decided without me. I know that. No. You knew I would probably say yes if you made it difficult enough to say no. That's not fair. You let her into my house while I was out of town. She wasn't wandering through your bedroom. She was in the sunroom. I don't care if she stood in the foyer and held her breath. You did not have permission to give her access. I lived there. You didn't live there then. The line went quiet. I missed things, he finally said. His voice had changed. The polish was gone. What things? The house, my kitchen, waking up and knowing where the coffee was. I missed being able to drive through the gate without someone deciding whether I belonged. For one dangerous second, I could see him there, bare feet on the cold tile. One hand braced against the counter while he waited for the coffee. His reading glasses left beside the toaster, although he swore he never left them there. Then I looked at Diane's note. So you kept using the remote. A few times. To let your mother in. And to get my things. Without telling me. I didn't want every visit to become a negotiation. Your solution to not feeling welcome was to enter when I wasn't home. You were my wife. Separated wife. I know what the word means. Do you? He made a small sound, almost a laugh, except there was nothing amused in it. You don't have to make me stupid to make me wrong. That surprised me enough that I sat down. You're not stupid, I said. That's why this hurts. He did not answer. After we ended the call, I carried the blue dish from the back door to the pantry cabinet. It left a pale ring in the dust on the counter. I wiped the ring away, then spent an embarrassing amount of time deciding where to put the dish. In the end, I set it behind a stack of serving bowls and shut the door. On Monday morning, I removed my card from the business scheduling software, the shared phone account, and the climate control service for the garage storage racks. Mercer Pine had charged all 3 to me for years, then reimbursed me whenever cash flow allowed. Cash flow had apparently not allowed it since January. The total was not enormous. That was how these things survived. Nothing was large enough to justify a fight by itself. At 10, Hearthline Rentals emailed me a declined payment notice for $7,430. I called and reached a woman named Renee, who remembered me from the years when I handled every Mercer Pine invoice. I'm no longer responsible for that account, I told her. Our master agreement lists you as the financial contact and personal guarantor. I'm sorry, what? She sent the document while we were speaking. I recognized my signature. In 2019, Hearthline had supplied chairs and tableware for a hotel event after another rental company backed out. Diane had been frantic, Evan had been loading centerpieces into a van, and I had signed what I thought was a one-event credit application. The agreement had no expiration date. Why is there a balance now? I asked. Baird retirement dinner, chairs, glassware, service pieces, linen reserve. I didn't authorize that order. Evan did. He is an approved buyer. Then charge Evan. We attempted the payment method on file. My old business card had expired. The replacement had never been added. If they don't pay, are you coming after me? I'm telling you what the agreement permits. There was no threat in Renee's voice. That made it worse. I asked her to suspend any additional orders and email the itemized invoice. She agreed to pause shipment changes for 24 hours, but she would not release my name from the account until the balance was resolved. When I called Evan, he answered with, "I was going to tell you. That should be printed on your family crest." What happened? Hearthline says I personally guaranteed your rentals. You signed the master account. I signed for the Marston event 7 years ago. It rolled into the account. And you kept ordering under it. We always paid. You haven't paid this. We haven't received the final client installment. You received $18,000. Diane used part of it for deposits and payroll. Payroll again. 2 people would have had checks delayed by 4 days. And somehow, my credit became the bridge. We are paying Hearthline. I'm moving money tomorrow. From where? Does it matter? It matters if you're moving it from another event deposit. He did not answer. I emailed Hearthline notice that I was terminating my guarantee after the current balance was satisfied. Then I contacted every other vendor account still showing my name. 4 required forms. 2 required Evan's signature. 1 had a monthly software charge of $14 that no one remembered purchasing. By noon, Diane had emailed to accuse me of freezing a rental account days before an event. I replied with Renee copied. The order will remain active if Mercer Pine pays its balance directly. Diane called me petty. Renee replied with a payment link. That was my first good moment all day. At 4 on Tuesday, Evan arrived for the pickup with 2 men from his building and a borrowed box truck. "They're not movers," I asked. "They have arms." One of them lifted both hands. Confirmed. I almost smiled. Evan saw it and looked relieved, which made me straighten my face. Diane was not with him. For the first hour, the pickup went smoothly. I checked items against his list while the men loaded linen bins, votive crates, folding screens, and 2 bar carts. Evan worked without complaint. He had always been good at physical tasks, surprisingly patient with furniture, and terrible with tape. At the back of the garage, he rested a hand on one of the walnut console tables. "These go." "No, they don't." "They're business inventory. They were in our dining room for events. We bought them at Bell Street Antiques. Diane bought them. I paid for one. You reimbursed the company for one." "No, I didn't. Mara, we used them at tastings. We used my water glasses at tastings. Are you taking those?" He looked toward the house. "Do you want me to?" The joke came out automatically like a light switch in an empty room. Neither of us laughed. He found the tables on Diane's inventory sheet. I searched my personal email for the receipt, then my bank statements. Bell Street had closed 3 years earlier, and the old transaction showed only the store name and amount. It was enough to prove I had paid something, not what. Evan loaded both tables. Then came 6 cane-backed chairs I had used in the guest rooms and sunroom before Diane began borrowing them. They were on her list, too. "Those are mine." She had them reupholstered. "That doesn't make them hers. The business paid." After her florist spilled wax on them, "I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to leave my chairs. They're on the inventory." An inventory, she wrote. "You told us to make a list." I stood between him and the chairs, aware of the 2 men pretending not to watch. "Do you remember where we bought them?" "No." "Savannah, on our 4th anniversary." His expression shifted. "We drove them home because shipping cost more than the chairs," I said. "You tied the trunk down with your belt." "I remember." "Then why are they on her list?" He ran his thumb along the new upholstery. "Because she reimbursed us when she started using them." "No, she paid for the upholstery." "I can't prove that." "Neither can I." One of the men stepped outside. Evan lowered his voice. "This is what happens when people share things for 12 years. No, this is what happens when one person keeps records and the others rely on confusion. That's a hell of a thing to say while holding a clipboard. I looked at the chairs. I could fight over them, delay the pickup, pull bank statements and old photographs, and drag every object through the same argument. The thought exhausted me more than losing them. Take them. He blinked. Mara, take everything on the disputed list today. After this, no disputed items leave without receipts. Future pickup is by a licensed, insured mover. That's unnecessary. So is having 2 men from your apartment carry furniture through my property while we argue about anniversaries. The chairs went into the truck. After the doors closed, Evan stood in the driveway with the afternoon light on one side of his face. I'm trying to fix the Baird event, he said, by hosting it here, by finding a solution. Louise said Whitmore may have a cancellation policy that lets you transfer the hold fee. Diane won't work with them again. This isn't about her feelings. It is to her. And you keep making that everyone else's financial problem. He rubbed the back of his neck. Malcolm wants this house. Has anyone told him I never approved it? We told him there was a venue complication. That's not the truth. It's enough truth to solve the problem. I looked at the truck containing my chairs. That's what you think honesty is, I said. The minimum amount needed to get people to cooperate. He flinched. I expected him to deny it. Instead, he opened the truck, took out one cane-back chair, and set it in my garage. For the blue room, he said, there is no blue room anymore. I know. He closed the truck again and drove away with the other 5. That evening, Louise called. I found a room, he said. Where? Stonebridge Design Center. Their atrium is open Saturday because a product launch moved. Licensed kitchen, prep kitchen, loading dock, 48 chairs that look like they were designed by someone angry at the human spine. Would Malcolm accept it? He might. Diane will not. Why? Because it costs $4,800 and is not your house. I'll call Malcolm. Louise sighed. Are you calm? No. Can you sound calm? I've had years of practice. Malcolm Baird answered on the second ring. His voice was warm, cautious, and older than I expected. When I told him my home had never been authorized, he did not shout. He asked 3 precise questions, then became quiet. Evan said you had reservations about insurance, he said. I was never part of the discussion. So the tour, what tour? Another silence. Malcolm had toured my sunroom the Friday night of my conference. Diane had met him there. Evan had opened the gate remotely, then told Malcolm I was working late. I wrote down every word, even though my hand was shaking. I'm sorry, Malcolm said. I'm sorry too. Louise has an alternative. If Louise approves the kitchen, I'll look at it. By Thursday, Malcolm had approved Stonebridge. Louise revised the service plan. Hearthline agreed to redirect the rentals if Mercer Pine paid the venue balance by Friday at noon. I copied Evan and Diane on everything. Diane replied that I had exceeded my role and confused the client. Then, at 11 Friday morning, Tom called. Ms. Ellison, we received a visitor manifest for tomorrow under your address. 4 vendors, a catering crew, and 38 guest vehicles. Who submitted it? Evan Mercer. He doesn't have authority. I know, that's why I'm calling. An email from Diane arrived while Tom was still speaking. Mara, Stonebridge is unsuitable, and Malcolm will understand once he sees the completed setup. We will arrive at 7 to prepare the room. Please do not turn a private disagreement into a public embarrassment. A second email followed from Hearthline. Delivery update confirmed. Destination: the Ellison Glass House. Gate arrival: 7 a.m. I forwarded the delivery update to Renee. That address has not authorized entry, I wrote. Stonebridge is the confirmed venue. Please call me. She called before I could set down my phone. Evan changed it online at 10:42, she said. He's still an approved buyer. He's directing your truck to private property he cannot access. I understand. I can place another hold, but I need a final destination authorized by the account holder. I'm the guarantor. You're terminating your relationship with the account. I can't let you approve new orders and also argue you have no authority. It was irritatingly reasonable. What if the client confirms the destination? If Mr. Baird confirms Stonebridge in writing and Stonebridge accepts the delivery, I can update the route, but Mercer Pine still has to pay by noon. I checked the time. 11:17. Malcolm answered from Stonebridge. I could hear Luis in the background arguing with someone about a sink. I've just received a seating plan for this room, Malcolm said. I assume that means we're committed. Diane is still directing rentals to my house. He was quiet for a moment. Send me the email address, he said. At 11:29, Malcolm wrote to Renee, Luis, Stonebridge, Evan, Diane, and me. As the client, I confirm that tomorrow's retirement dinner will be held at Stonebridge Design Center. No portion of my event is authorized to take place at Ms. Ellison's residence. Please direct all deliveries accordingly. At 11:31, Diane called. I let it ring once, then answered. You had no right to involve Malcolm in a family disagreement. He's paying for an event. He gets to know where it is. You embarrassed us in front of a major client. You gave him a tour of my house while I was out of town. Evan allowed me to enter. Evan could not authorize that. He was your husband. He wasn't living here. Marriage doesn't evaporate the moment someone carries a suitcase out the door. No, apparently it evaporates after the judge signs the papers. The address changes. The gate access is removed, and security still has to explain it. This obsession with technicalities is beneath you. My ownership of my home is not a technicality. You know what I mean. I finally do. Diane drew a breath, and when she spoke again, the anger had left her voice. She sounded tired. Stonebridge is a showroom. Malcolm wanted warmth. He wanted history. He wanted to give his partners a night that felt personal after 32 years in an office. Then you should have booked a place you were authorized to use. Whitmore treated me like a risk. They asked you to buy insurance. They tripled the coverage 4 days after taking my deposit. I have run events for 26 years without injuring a guest or damaging a room. At some point, accepting every new demand tells people they were right to doubt you. There it was. Beneath the entitlement was something proud and frightened. Diane had built a business by making every room look effortless. Insurance forms, shrinking margins, and borrowed spaces expose the machinery. I understand why you hated it, I said. You still couldn't use my house. I thought once you saw the table set, you would remember what we could do there. You planned to set the table before asking. You love those dinners. Sometimes, you were good at them. That's different. Is it? Yes. Being good at making your plans work did not mean I wanted to spend my life doing it. She was quiet. At 11:40, Evan paid Hearthline. Renee confirmed the payment and redirected the truck to Stonebridge. The money came from the portion of Malcolm's balance that had been held for final venue costs. Stonebridge's fee left Mercer Pine with almost no profit, but Luis told me the staff and vendors would be paid. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I spent the next hour calling the other account holders tied to my name. I finished the 4 termination forms. Evan signed 2 after I sent him a message saying I would not complete the remaining 9 event reconciliations until he did. He signed them in 6 minutes. At 3, Luis sent me a photograph of Stonebridge's atrium. The room was long and gray with concrete floors, thin black columns, and a ceiling of industrial glass. He had written beneath it, Malcolm likes the walls. I called him. Is the event safe? The event is an event. It will become safe approximately 8 minutes after dessert. What does Diane think? She says the room has no soul. Does it? It has excellent electrical outlets. I laughed. Then he said, she still thinks she can change Malcolm's mind. He put it in writing. Diane thinks writing is what people do before she speaks to them. What are you telling your staff? Stonebridge. My trucks will go to Stonebridge. My fish will go to Stonebridge. If Diane wants to serve dinner in a driveway, she can catch her own fish. Thank you. I am not doing this for you. I am doing it because Malcolm has paid me and concrete floors clean beautifully. I know, he sighed, and because what they did was rotten. That was as close to loyalty as Luis was willing to sound. Evan arrived at my house just before 6. He did not try the gate. Tom called, and I approved a 15-minute visit. When I opened the front door, Evan was holding a paper bag from the Italian restaurant where we had divided the bills. I brought ravioli. I'm not hungry. You're always hungry when you say that. I'm not letting you host a dinner here because you brought pasta. I know. He looked past me, not into the house exactly, but toward the space beside the back door where the blue dish used to sit. Can I come in? No. He nodded as if he had expected that and still needed a second to absorb it. We sat on the front steps with the paper bag between us. He handed me one of the cardboard containers and a plastic fork. The ravioli was lukewarm and too salty. Malcolm transferred the final payment, he said. Hearthline is covered. Stonebridge is covered. Luis is covered. And payroll? Monday will be tight. Don't ask. I wasn't going to. I looked at him. I was not going to ask you, he said. That must be new. It is. He ate 2 bites, then set the container aside. My mother thinks if she gets the flowers into your sunroom before Malcolm sees Stonebridge, he'll change his mind. She's not getting through the gate. I told her that. Did you tell her you submitted a visitor manifest under my address? His mouth tightened. Yes. Why did you do it? She asked me to. The simplicity of his answer hurt more than a complicated lie would have. And that was enough. No. He rubbed his palms together. It was easier than telling her the event had moved because of something I did. Something you both did. I was the one who told Malcolm your house was available. She asked if I was sure. I said you and I had an understanding. We did not. I know. Why would you say that? Because you usually came through, after you made the alternative unbearable. Yes. I stopped with the fork halfway to my mouth. Evan looked down at the lawn. You want me to argue? No. I can, if it would feel more normal. That's not funny. No. A cart moved along the road below us, its small electric motor humming. I thought I was protecting her, he said. Then I thought I was protecting the staff, then the client. There was always someone more innocent than me I could stand in front of. And where was I? Behind me. It was the first accurate thing he had said about our marriage without being forced there 1 inch at a time. You took money from me, I said. You gave away my home. You let her enter when I wasn't here. I know. You don't get credit for knowing now. I know that, too. He took the dead gate remote from his pocket and held it out. She gave it back. I took it off her key ring this afternoon. I did not reach for it. You can leave it with Tom. His hand closed around the remote. All right. He put the ravioli lid back on my container, folded the paper bag around it, and stood. Will you tell her not to come tomorrow? I already have. Will she listen? He gave me a tired, crooked look. There was my answer. At 6:58 the next morning, the kitchen monitor chimed. Diane's SUV waited behind the lowered barrier. White roses filled the back. Folded linens were stacked against the windows. A rental van stood behind her, and behind that was Evan's truck. Diane pressed the remote once. The barrier did not move. She pressed it again. My phone rang. Ms. Ellison, Tom said. Mrs. Mercer is requesting entry. She says there has been another venue change. There hasn't. She has 2 vehicles with her. I can see them. On the monitor, Diane got out of her SUV and walked to the security window. She wore a dark green dress under a camel coat, ready to host. Even through the grainy image, I could see the red in her cheeks. My other line flashed. Evan, I answered. Please let the flower car through, he said. Just the flower car? No. She spent $2,000 on those arrangements. They can go to Stonebridge. They were designed for your table. Then she designed them for a table she didn't have. She's refusing to go to Stonebridge unless we try. You've tried. She says Malcolm will follow if he sees photographs of the setup. You are not setting up my house. I know. I'm trying to get her out of the road. Then tell her the truth. She knows the truth. No, she knows the gate is down. Tell her why it's staying down. On screen, Diane turned toward the camera. Her face had the same expression it had the previous Saturday. Controlled patience. Absolute confidence that I would eventually rescue everyone from the discomfort of my refusal. Evan lowered his voice. Mara, the vendors can see her. Tom can see her. She is standing there with the entire event in her car. I can see her too. Then you understand what this is doing to her. I did understand. That was the difficult part. For years, Diane had made beauty out of other people's rooms. She entered carrying flowers and left behind candlelight, polished glasses, and the impression that everything had happened naturally. Being stopped at the gate exposed the assumption beneath all that grace. If I let her in, I said, she will believe she was right to come. She'll leave after the photographs. No, she won't, and neither will you. He went quiet. The replacement venue is confirmed, I said. Malcolm approved it. Luis and the staff are already there. Hearthline has directions. Your mother can take the flowers to Stonebridge, or she can take them home. Mara, her access requires my approval. I looked at Diane on the monitor. She doesn't have it. I returned to Tom's call. Do not lift the barrier. Yes, ma'am. The rental van pulled out first. Its driver made a careful 3-point turn and headed back toward the main road. Evan got out of his truck and approached Diane. Their conversation had no sound, but I could read its rhythm. Diane pointing toward my house. Evan shaking his head. Diane opening her hands. Evan not moving. At last he took the remote from her and walked it to Tom's window. Diane stood alone beside the white roses. Then she got back into her SUV, turned around, and drove toward Stonebridge. The event happened there. Louis texted me at 7:30 that everyone had arrived. At 8:15, he sent a photograph of the white roses spread across 3 long concrete tables. Against the gray room, they looked less romantic than Diane had intended and more striking. Malcolm liked them. I did not attend. I ate the leftover ravioli in my sunroom and watched the evening light move across the empty oak table. Mercer Pine finished the bear dinner without a profit, but also without defaulting. Malcolm did not use them again. Luis did under new terms, half his fee in advance, venue confirmation directly from the property, no exceptions. Hearthline released my guarantee after the payment cleared. I completed the 9 reconciliations I had promised. Each one ended with a handoff email, a closed login, or my name removed from a form. When the last spreadsheet balanced, I sent it to Evan and signed out of the shared drive. Diane used all 3 remaining pickup windows. The first 2 passed without conversation. At the third, she discovered the garage still held more than the licensed mover's truck could carry. We need another week, she said. The storage period ends Friday. You have space. That's not the agreement. She looked at Evan. The old signal passed between them so clearly I almost expected him to turn toward me. Instead, he said, I reserved a storage unit. Diane stared at him. It's heated, he added. The mover can take the rest there. We cannot keep paying for spaces just because Mara wants empty shelves. They're her shelves. Diane's face changed, not dramatically, a small closing. She supervised the final load without speaking to either of us. Mercer Pine continued in smaller rooms. Diane stopped advertising private home dinners and focused on corporate lunches and restaurant events. Evan handled the vendor accounts himself. Once, months later, Luis told me Evan had started asking for written permission before changing delivery addresses. He hates it, Luis said. I'm sure. He does it anyway. That mattered more than I wanted it to. The last item Evan returned was the dead gate remote. He brought it in a plain envelope and handed it to Tom, who logged the serial number and called me to confirm. I collected it on my way home from work. The plastic casing was scratched, and a strip of Diane's white label tape still clung to the back. Mara Gate, it said. In my kitchen, I opened the pantry cabinet and brought out the blue ceramic dish. I peeled Diane's label from the old remote, dropped the dead device in the trash, and set my new remote in the center of the dish. It struck the glaze with a small, clean click. Then I placed the dish beside my door, exactly where I wanted it.